Before we start today's episode, let me tell you about my latest adventure. Introducing Lux Coffee Co., a specialty-grade coffee company inspired by creativity and creatives. The debut range is sourced from some of the best farms in Brazil, Peru, Colombia, and Africa, offering beautiful flavors and notes. Our single origins and house blends are roasted every Monday for next day shipping. Visit luxcoffee.co.uk and use code PODCAST for 15% off your first order. And yes, there's exceptional merch too. Lux Coffee Co. is where art meets exceptional coffee.
Yeah, going into that was like, I wouldn't say stressful. It was definitely a learning curve. You have to manage the politics within the companies and like what you say, you have to be careful. So I think for me, it was difficult, but I love a challenge. I will pursue whatever it is that I want to do and I'll keep going.
Welcome to Mindful Creative Podcast, a show about understanding how to deal with the highs and lows of creative lives. My name is Rahul Bhatt, and creativity changed my life, but it also nearly killed me. In this season, inspired by my book of the same title, I am talking to some of the most celebrated figures in the creative industry. In our candid conversations, my guests share their experiences and how they overcame their challenges and struggles, how they learned to grow as creatives. A creative career in the 21st century can be overwhelming. I wanted to capture these honest and transparent conversations that might help you find that guiding light in your career. Thank you for joining me on this episode and taking the first or next step towards regaining control of your creative life. You ready? Today's guest is a multimedia creative director based in LA and London who works in the entertainment industry. He creates visual content, photography and video. He develops and produces 360 digital and content campaigns for chart-topping artists. Born in Tanzania and raised in the UK, he discusses his evolution through various roles at major music labels, his approach to creative work, and his experiences in building visual worlds for artists like One Direction, Jon Batiste, Coldplay and Camila Cabello, as well as TV shows like The X Factor and Got Talent. We also talk about the positive influence of his former mentor, Simon Cowell. It's my pleasure to introduce Rahul Bhatt. Hey Rahul, it's nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
Hello, Radim. It's been a while. I think like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah, we haven't spoken for a very long time. And you've been on my radar as one of the guests I wanted to bring on the show because our paths, yes, crossed back in London. Now you're in sunny LA doing amazing things. And yeah, I thought it was a great way to catch up.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I was looking at the lineup of who you've had previously, and I do get like imposter syndrome all the time. And I was like, why does Radim want me on the podcast? So it's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, because everyone's got their own place they know they deserve to have. So for those who have may not heard of you, how would you introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Rahul Bhatt. I'm a multi-disciplinary creative in the music industry, specializing in photography, video, directing, design. Basically, whatever the artist's needs are, I'm there for them. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. I've been in the industry for over 10 years now, starting with Def Jam Records way back in the day, and then moving to Psycho, which is Simon Cowell's record label, working with pretty amazing artists over there. One Direction, Little Mix, Fifth Harmony. I'm now in LA, work with Coldplay and people like that. And Camila Cabello's my main kind of artist I work with regularly. But yeah, that's me.
Fantastic journey, and unpick on a few different strands because I want to find out what was your drive getting into music industry? Were you a kid that wanted to be a musician, or did you like the media side of things? Because I know you studied media. So how did you get into music?
For me, it was always the media aspect of it, the videos and the photography. Like when I was in high school, in college, I did like wedding videos for people. And that was my first exposure. I'd be going with my dad to record people's weddings. And that was fun, but I read your book and you said the first chapter is like you being stressed. And that was basically me at 15 doing these wedding videos and stuff. So yeah, I did that. And then like I did media studies in college and I got introduced to the world of like music videos. And I think I remember seeing, I think it was Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. And I was like, oh my God, imagine working in that environment and like being with these artists and stuff like that. So I kind of knew from then that that's what I wanted to do. Not necessarily the music production element, but like the business behind the music. Yeah. And that's what I always found fascinating. And I did start off in the business aspect of it, doing digital marketing, PR, and then slowly moving towards the creative aspect, photography and stuff like that. Yeah.
How does a 15-year-old do a wedding video? Because that's a headache for a grown-up.
Yeah, it was stressful. I'd be helping my dad, I'd be editing the videos. And at first, I was always like intrigued by new technology. So I'd always try to incorporate whatever the new trend was. I think we were using DV cams and then we moved to DSLR. So I was like, okay, I want to be like the first people in my small town to use DSLR for videos and stuff like that. So that always kept me going, whatever the new tech was then. But yeah, to say it was stressful, it's an understatement. It was like if something wasn't delivered in time, it was the biggest deal. And looking back, it's only a wedding video, relax.
I think there's something really weird about people's weddings and like their expectations, because I think it was comedian Ed Byrne who said when he was going through the wedding planning and stuff, people said, this is going to be the happiest day of your life. And he said, surely if it's the happiest day of my life, I'm going to let shit slide. Like nothing matters. Whereas it's the opposite.
But I get it. I get it. It's the biggest day for someone. You don't want anything to go not according to plan. So I get it. Yeah. I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. We had some great times and saw some great weddings. I've been to a lot of weddings. But yeah, that was the past. That's where it all started. And my family's always been into photography, like my granddad, because I was born in Tanzania, East Africa. So my granddad always had a photo lab there. And then we moved to the UK in 2000. And my dad did wedding videos and stuff. And that's where it started. And, you know, it's always been in the family.
All right. How old are you when you moved from Tanzania to UK?
I think I was like 8 years old. So it was stressful.
Was it stressful? Crikey.
Yeah, I just don't know how, my mom did it. No, with that, I was like, I'm looking back, I was like, moving to a new country with 3 kids is a lot for anybody. Yeah, so I'm like, looking back, I'm like, damn, Mom, you're a hero.
That's a nice tribute to do it because, yeah, I've got 2 kids before moving to any other country and it's a handful. But there was a nice link to what you said about Lady Gaga and actually you having that view into more of the business side of things, like actually what's behind the scenes, because we get a lot of people who want to be the person. Like we get mesmerized by the end product. We go, oh, I want to be a rock star. I want to be a pop star. I want to be a DJ or producer or rapper. And I like that you bypass that because I guess maybe from already knowing how stressful things can be, you aim that. So how did you get to work with Def Jam and then going on to Psycho? Because to someone be like, wait a minute, so you've been doing wedding videos and you're working for Def Jam next. How does that work?
So I moved to London for university. And there, I knew then that I always wanted to be in music. So then I needed to make money. So I worked part-time at Apple, selling Apple iPhones and doing tech stuff. What do you call the genius part? That's where I was at. I did that. And then that's when I started to apply for like internships, whatever, work experience, at the record labels. And one of the first companies I got into was Def Jam. And that was just a foot in the door. It was like 3-month or 6-month work experience. And yeah, that exposed me to like how the industry kind of works. It was like the early days of digital marketing. So I was like making banners and stuff like that, and using Photoshop to make banners for like Justin Bieber, Frank Ocean, and all these people. And that I knew how to use Photoshop. So I was like, oh, this is easy. I can do this. That's how I made me decide I want to do more of this.
Well, we had a quick pre-chat before we started recording about the fact that we come from 2 different generations of working with music, because when I was getting into music as a wannabe musician or wannabe rock star and a musician, the visual side of things was pretty limited. It was like, here's the album cover, potentially some merch, which is the album cover, and that's it. That maybe a poster, like an ad in the paper or in a magazine. There was nothing more beyond this. Whereas now we've just opened this Narnia to content, everything, what I call the fragmented marketing, that as many platforms exist, as many channels we have, as many websites on I can't even put the right word on it, but it's just all fragmented. And this is the world where you live and thrive, because how was that sort of step up from the banners for Justin Bieber all the way to producing content for some of the biggest pop stars and bands in the world?
Yeah, I think to touch on your point earlier, I think right now artists are building worlds on social media, building worlds around the album. So I think there are those people that will still just do photography and deliver that. That's great. But now I think as an artist, you have to think beyond the album packaging, think what your social media strategy is, what kind of world are you building online? So I think for me, I like to be part of that. I like to help create those photos or whatever it is and the videos. And then I also like to help build like a world around the artist. So for example, Camila with her recent album, I helped create the trailers and like the social teasers and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, now more than ever, I think it's just being a creative is just more than the one specific thing, whether that's photography, video, like directing, even design you have to get involved in. I think, yeah, I think that's kind of way it's heading. And I like that. I don't like to do one thing and be done with it. I like to fully immerse myself within the world building aspect of it. And it sounds so like music industry world building, but you create these worlds and it's beyond just the music. It's how the world shows on social media and yeah, like how it looks and stuff like that. So I love doing that. I think that's the way it's heading and I love that.
I think what's changed in the world of music, and I think it was a guy called Steve Reed. I think it was the guy. It was the manager for a band called Incubus. And this is going, let's say, this quote goes about 15 years ago. And he said, once upon a time, you just have to put a poster up that the band is coming and then just show up. And that would be enough. And now you obviously doing all of these like live streams and webcasts and the conversations. And I think we're getting, let's say, music fans, or the music fans are getting so much more value out of everyone because they know so much more about the artist. They almost nothing off limits these days, which when you think about it for the fan base, that's amazing because they've got more access and more touch points, more merge and more just view into the world of a musician than ever before. But how much more demanding it can seem for the artist, because when I think about my ambitions of like, okay, I want to be a rock star, right? You're thinking, you're going to be just living a great life. And you're thinking, what's going to happen? You're going to be a creative. And you're thinking, I'm going to be creative every single day. I'm going to do creative work. And then you realize, no, you're going to create some of the time. You're going to be working on your business most of your time. Then you have to make sure your mental health is okay. Because when you think, not the big artists, they make the album and they tour it for 18 months. That's just a repeat of a repeat. That's not a creative position per se, because as like those big sets, they're just baked in. You can't, there's literally, I think there's a given condition where the musicians basically almost lose like the perception of reality because you just play the same set all the time. You're thinking, wow, like that is a really hard working job that takes so much out of anyone. So from you being on that side, in between almost, how do you see your role in content, and like how sensitive could it be to actually get the right message from the musician into the world and now the world building? Like how much thought goes into it? Because the nuances can be crazy, in my opinion.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you're enjoying this podcast and would like more support and information on your creative journey, you can pick up one of my books to help you do just that. My titles cover branding, graphic design, illustration, all the way to career business advice with ideas how to navigate the highs and lows of the creative process. You can pick up signed paperbacks at no extra cost from my store at novemberuniverse.co.uk, and we are shipping worldwide. Use code PODCAST for extra 10% off your order, and you can find the links in the show notes. Any day should be a new book day.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm going to touch on your point earlier, doing the album. I think for an artist, it's usually fulfilling to make the album and then touring it is almost seeing your work come to life. Doing these music videos is seeing your work come, what you had in your head. It's basically putting it out in the real world. that's what excites artists playing these shows and stuff. Yes, it's repetitive, but I think seeing how people receive that in the real world, I think it's fulfilling is what I would say. Can't speak for the artists themselves, but yeah, I think that's kind of what is exciting for artists and a fan. As you said earlier, like now more than ever, it's not just putting your album out and you're done. It's like giving fans these experiences and things like that. And it's a great time to be a fan because it's not just your artist is just on and then off. It's like basically 24-hour access to the artist, which can be a little overwhelming. But yeah, that's the way it is now. And I think artists are getting more and more creative of how they reach the fans, whether it's like live experiential pop-ups and things like that. And that's exciting to me. I think would be exciting for a lot of artists and fans too, obviously.
Let me take it back by one step, because obviously we go from these banners and from Def Jam to Psycho, and now it gradually, the content grows, because it seems with every single year, generally with everything, like everything gets more intricate, everything gets more exciting, more complicated, more simplified in the same way. Like we got better tools, we got more powerful technology, but it's sometimes like, how do you keep up with the process and progress? In your personal journey, when we talk about, we go from wedding videos, to banners, to being a creative director, content creator, like driving all of these big artists out there in the world with their world building. Let's talk about these steps. Like, how do you get from the place 1 to place 20?
Yeah, I think seeing kind of the first insight into the world of music was Def Jam, and seeing that world and seeing your work out there is the first kind of like big whoa moment. And that was with the banners, seeing it on like the Facebook page of whatever artist it was at the time. It's, oh, okay, that's fun. That's exciting. And then as you go gradually, you create more stuff that gets out in the world and you're like, oh, this is actually exciting. And then but you pair that with the idea that you can think of something and you can go out and create it. So pair that with being out in the world, I think is what gets you to keep going. And it's not about the ego aspect. Oh, look, it's on print. It must mean something. It's not that. It's just seeing it out in the world and you help someone achieve their vision. I think it's more about that than the ego. Oh, my work is in print or my work is on Billboard or whatever. I think it's more that side, like you helping someone kind of bring their vision to life. And that's what keeps me pushing more and more. That's the part that I like doing. With the music industry, it's your ego, whatever, you have to let it go. You're there for the artist's vision. And, you know, you might see something one way and they might see something one way and you have to meet in the middle / execute what their vision is. And I think ego, whatever, you kind of have to let that go. And that's what you have to do, you know, because I work in the business side of music, the social aspect and the creative side. So it's like the fine balance. Let go of your ego. You know, you're there to help create an artist's vision. So let that be the aim. That's how you go from seeing your banners to then.
Okay, I think you've given me a great few words for a segue to a man that sort of helped you shape your career, which is Simon Cowell. And that's ego and help someone shape their vision, because obviously the way he's perceived publicly, obviously, it's just Simon Cowell. And whatever the opinions people might have, obviously, you know him from a totally different side, actually working for him and how long did you work for Psycho?
I think it was over 10 years. I think 11 years. Yeah.
That's a long time. How would you say that for those 10 years, how did you see the industry change, and how do you see your ways of working, and how do you see the industry change?
Yeah. I think it was so different back then. I started on a project at Psycho called U Generation. I think that's what you helped brand design or whatever it was. So I think that in itself was an incredible idea. I do think it was ahead of its time. But that's where I started. So it was already digital tech front heavy. And then, then going into X Factor and things like that, it's always what's the next technology? It was the rise of social media. So it's like using that to promote the shows.
I think the idea is like the industry almost changed, like from, I would say the industry is more fragmented in the way of micro genres, because I think 10 years ago, it was like, let's create a boy band or girl band. I think that the thing that what comes in as a mainstream now comes across differently, because it's more about, as opposed to relying on a genre, relying on a label, it's more after people build their own worlds, as you call it. I think that's the difference.
When we were doing shows like X Factor, it was the 3 kind of main platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever it was. And now there's so many options. There's TikTok, there's Discord. In music, we have Stationhead where you can just stream music with your fans. Yeah, I think the tech side of it is very interesting. And now with AI is also very interesting. So AI is interesting on all aspects, design and Photoshop and things like that. So where it started and where it is now, it's like totally different. Never in 10 years ago, I would have thought AI would be helping design or AI would be helping whatever it is. So that's the biggest difference in terms of this just more platform you have to create content for. What you create for Instagram does not necessarily work for TikTok. So you have to have a whole nother strategy for that, whole nother team for that. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. In my opinion, it's fun. I love TikTok and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely way more than when I started 10 years ago. First, it was just like Facebook, one post everywhere is fine. And now it's just, you can't do that. You have to like really look at who your audience is. Yeah, you have to really look at who's on your X, Twitter, whatever, who's on your TikTok, who's following you on Instagram, and really strategize for that.
Let me talk about your personal journey from where you were 10 years ago or where you were for 10 years ago, but now you find yourself living in LA. You were born in Tanzania, you grew up in England, worked in London, now you live there. In terms of your personal experience in the industry, and over the last 10 years of your life through social media, like for Instagram, it's like, hey, Rahul's doing really, really well. That's really great to see. But music industry can be perceived like a twisted fairy tale sometimes. It looks amazing, glitzy, but your experience of building your own career, building your own business, relocating, starting again, how did it go?
For me, my journey in the music industry was very different because the first kind of experience I had was Def Jam, and that was already the biggest music label at the time. And then going from that to Psycho, which again, another label, TV company. And yeah, going into that was like, I wouldn't say stressful. It was definitely a learning curve. You have to manage the politics within the companies and like what you say, you have to be careful. So I think for me, it was difficult, but I love a challenge. I will pursue whatever it is that I want to do and I'll keep going. And then same with coming to LA. I was like, I want to work on this artist, and like help or be where the magic happens, basically, in the music world. You go to America, that's where like the big award shows are and the big artists are fun and stuff like that. So I think for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to go to America. And then, I did move with Simon's company, Psycho, so working on America's Got Talent and artists here. So it was like Fifth Harmony, Camila. So it was like, yeah, it was getting thrown in with those like kind of big names from the beginning. It was tough. It was to be careful, understand how the politics work and also navigating how the business works, what a artist management does, what the digital team do, what PR team does. So it's like having to learn that and then coming to LA and then having to learn that again because they're obviously different in both the countries. So yeah, it was challenging. I love a challenge. And yeah, it's been amazing, but it's been like a big learning curve for sure. And I'm still learning and I learn every day. And yeah, that's how I look at it.
What struck me as quite mature is that when you already observed the industry, like saying, I had to watch out what to say to whom and like being aware of the politics, because from a personal perspective, you're like, I'm going to say something and see what comes back, pushing boundaries and trying to break the rules. But I think obviously I met you in person and we worked together. I've always impressed how mature you were beyond your years. Like you knew how to handle stuff. And I remember being cheeky, trying to extract some secrets about artists. You're like, you're very professional. I was like, oh, cool. Now he's going to go far, because I was just thinking off the cuff, like what's there to learn. But with your creative stuff, you mentioned your granddad had a photo lab back in Tanzania, and that hands-on experience of creativity coming to life, taking photos and seeing them come to life, I think could be quite sort of life-changing and life-affirming. So when it comes to actually your creative expression, did you have any sort of inspirations? Because you mentioned Lady Gaga, because you can see a huge stream of pop videos and music coming your way. So you're in the middle of it. But what is that sort of soul expression that you're saying, Rahul, this is my bit, this is what I want to do, this is my part? Because there is a signature to your work. So how did you see it coming to life?
Yeah, I think for me personally, there's two aspects of this. There's the kind of business side of it. That's watching the big kind of Lady Gaga video and be like, I want to work behind the scenes, not necessarily creating the music video, but oh my God, imagine being part of the rollout for that or building the world that Gaga was building at the time around that. So I think for me, when I was younger, looking at that, that's the first inspiration was like, oh my God, music industry, this is what I want to do. And then as you get into it, you get your nuances, like your artistic style, your photography and stuff like that. And I think this is where you can't let your ego get in the way of your work, because most of the time, and you have this creative freedom in terms of you have an idea, you can execute it, but then you are building around the artist. It's whatever style they want. So you kind of have to adapt to that. And, it's a big part of, I think, what I do is adapt to the style. I will do my own like personal stuff, personal projects that are more like creative, more out there. Whereas like with the artists and stuff, it's like you're building their vision. So it has to be true to their brand. Yeah, I think, that was a weird answer, but I think for me, it's the business side and then the actual creative side. There's two different inspirations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I think what you describe it, I think it's almost, in a way, artistically selfless, because you're talking about other people's vision and other people's ways. Because I think under what ego is mentioned, there's so many different ways to see it. Is it bravado? What is it? Because I've been trying to decipher it recently, and ego is more of like the sense of identity. Who am I? What am I here for? And some people are the ones who want to be the front of the queue, be known for what they do, and almost get all the glory and all the accolades. Whereas with the work that you do, you need to make the other person shine, but still have creative satisfaction actually by doing the work that's worth doing. Because if you didn't have your sort of creative temptation, creative vision, if you didn't create for your soul, then you'd be in a wrong job. And obviously, the bigger the artist, the bigger the layer of politics, the bigger the outcome, the bigger the expectation. This is where the stakes are really high. So I want to know that, obviously, I know that you tell me that you are big on the C word, compromise. Like you're happy to find a way that works for everyone. But how much pressure there goes into a rollout around the album campaign, the world building? Can you metabolize it by standing on the sidelines and going, I'm fine here, I'm a professional, I can see? Or do you get stress, and does other people's stress rub on you?
First of all, I think how I handle stress is definitely different to how other people handle stress. I'm usually, or at least I look very calm on the outside. I do feel like getting stressed about stuff you can't control. There's literally no point. If something's not rendered or whatever, it's okay. What do you want me to do? There's that. And then there's also internal, oh no, I need to get this done like today or like in the next hour. So I think there's different levels of stress, when we're close to like deadlines and stuff, obviously that stress level goes high, and it does mean I'm up late finishing work and stuff like that. So I think different levels of stress for different kind of time periods, different projects. And with me, it's like not just one project. I'll have like multiple around the year. So it's, once you're done with one, it's straight on to the next. So you don't even have time to, oh, that was fun. It's like usually, okay, on to the next. And then that's where I think that's where the fun is, to be honest with you. It's okay, done with one. Let's see what we can do in the next project. And I think probably just everyone handles stress differently. So yeah, for me, I try and not let it affect me as much, especially in the work I'm doing. Sometimes we'll create stills or whatever it is, and then it has to be delivered like that day. And that's where, as you said, the big C word comes from, the compromises. Okay, we don't have time. So what are we going to do to speed up the process? And it means you're going to have to compromise on something. And to me, that's okay. I understand that to certain creatives, that might not be okay. And that's totally fine. But the way I work is I was always creative, but I always have the business in the back of my head. The music business is like, okay, I get that we have to be creative and deliver like an amazing product, but also understand deadlines, understand why we need what we need and when we need it. Also knowing the business side can also be stressful. Oh, I need to get it done, because if I don't get it done, I know what the implications are. I don't know. It's just being fully like in the artist world, business, or just the music business. Yeah, it's stressful, but I don't know, I'm still here and I do like it. Seeing different kind of walls, projects, whatever it is, music come out, it's like a big fulfilling moment.
Yeah, I think we tell ourselves that in the creative industry, we are always the one who potentially have it the worst. We've got a lovely job, but compared to some other people, we get more stress because we've got all of these things. When you think about it, like how much it goes into a balanced mental health, not a state of mind for a regular person. And then you put people in the room and say, now go and collaborate. And you're going to be a project manager, you're going to do this. And you get people's life nuances, life experiences, life stresses, current sort of breakup stories that are playing up in the open. And I say, you put all of this into a room and someone says, go, you got a creative project and everything needs to go smoothly and quickly. And that's near impossible. Like it could be in the music, advertising, branding, and all sorts of things, theater, because not everyone is always the one who works on themselves, making sure I need to bring my better version of myself to the creative process, because it's sometimes easy just to ignore our problem. So what you describe, it, obviously, I think having that sort of positive effect on the process, even though you might be freaking out in your mind, that's what makes it professional. Because yeah, if you decide for your creative process, think who can help you, what you can do with it, that's, especially when the stakes are so high, that's a growth of a long-term career. Because if you haven't thrown in the towel now, I think you'll be all right for a while. Because yeah, we tells ourselves stories about other dream jobs being easier or less stressful, but haven't
Yeah.
been stressful.
To me, grass is always greener. It feels that way, but you look at what other people are doing and other jobs, and what we're doing is creative and it's fun. So it shouldn't be stressful. Of course it gets stressful, like with deadlines and stuff like that. For me, I always try to remember there's other jobs out there that are like way more stressful. And I'm always mindful of that. You know, I'm grateful where I am right now. Even going to a set and holding a camera just for the whole day is something that I could have never imagined. And to be doing that as a job, in my mind still, I'm like, wait, what? That's crazy. That's crazy. And then I get to go home and edit the photos. What kind of job is that? I think for me, that's how I look at it. If it gets too stressful, you can always find other stuff that you like doing to compensate for that, whether it's doing hobbies, going out, taking photos of, I don't know, flowers or something. That's probably what I'm going to do at some point. But yeah, that's how I look at it. I'm always grateful for every opportunity I get. Even when things get stressful, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be doing this. It's okay, relax. Yeah, even holding a camera for a job is crazy. To be creative is insane.
Let's talk about you holding a camera on set and doing live photos. But let's talk about more sort of practical advice, because it must be daunting, obviously, to do that on a day one, which you know you've been doing it for quite a while. But what do you do, for example, with the talent? Again, the talent might not be having a great day. Like, how do you direct your set? Have you got your assistants, or like, how do you do it in a studio setting and in a live setting? Because obviously, like sometimes you can control things. This is the thing that you can control stuff, and in a live setting, you can't control much. So how do you go between those two? What's your tips for this?
Yeah, so for me, because I do more than just live photography, I do studio sometimes, I do behind the scenes. So I have to adapt the way I work in different settings. Some photographers will only do studio settings. It's different. It's totally different to doing behind the scenes. In studios, of course, you'd have your team, and it's good to have people that you can trust. Like, to the point where if you look at something's not right, you look at that person and they also understand what's not right. Teams, that could be anything from like digitech, lighting assistants, whoever, just regular, just assistants. So I think that's in the studio element, and like behind the scenes element or live is kind of like always, yeah, have your cameras ready, prepare everything the night before, whatever it is, just always be ready. And I tend to carry two lenses, like wide and zoom, like 70 to 200, just so I'm not like on set. You don't have time. Like when you're on set and doing, you don't have time to switch lens and like be demure about it. No, no, no. You have to go. So like you should be ready to look at whatever your setting is and decide, oh, the wide will be great or the zoom will be great for this. So you just have to know. Yeah. And I think it's adapt to whatever the scenario is. Be a chameleon, like just figure it out. And also if you're doing like behind the scenes stuff, be mindful of the talents where the eye line is. Just imagine yourself, you're like performing and there's people looking at you. That's like the worst feeling. So just imagine how they feel. So always trying to stay out the eye line. until you're comfortable, until they're comfortable, whatever. I always try and stay out the eye line, but sometimes you have to get in, and they may tell you, they may not, or they may just not give the performance that they would give. So just be mindful of that. Even if you don't do it, just be mindful. Yeah, I think that's the biggest things. Yeah, and basic housekeeping, just be organized, know where everything is in terms of files on your computer and also in terms of your kit. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. And just be nice to everyone on set. You never know who anyone is. That's my biggest thing. Just be nice to everyone. It doesn't hurt. The crew out there working, and we're kind of, in addition to, if they've been the music video, it's like their world, and we're just coming in and capturing, documenting that. So that's how I see it.
I will make a link between wedding photography and what you just described, being an artist eyeliner, because I once happened to go into Adobe session on wedding photography 15 years ago, randomly. And there was literally some guy who won like the wedding award, but like best wedding photographer for 15 years. And he was like, look, we do this and that. Like, I've got 3 photographers. I pretend to take photos. I just chat to people. I pretend to take photos while I've got my 3 assistants taking photos from the sideline. So those pictures are the most natural, because as soon as you put camera at person, we start posing. We don't even want to, but that's what we do.
Yeah, that's like how it is with talent. Like working with Simon, he never liked photos like of him just looking to camera. Because I also used to take photos of Simon team and artists. He, like, when I used to show him photos, he'd always gravitate towards the reportage moments, because they're the stuff that you can't replicate, or it's nice seeing like the true emotions. One of my favorite photos I've taken, and like one of his as well, is the photo of Little Mix winning the first ever Brit Award. And I was just there with the camera, and I was on the table, and I was like, oh, let me just snap this moment. It was literally the reaction as they won. And that was like a very cool photo to capture. And to be in that moment was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it must be hard because we're all different. We're all different about how we go about things. And some people got their insecurities in a different way. And in the world that you work and you describe in, it comes across like they have to be almost on all the time, because you never know who sees you where and what happens. And I did have a Stefan Sagmeister on the show a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the fact that they couldn't even do photo shoots with people like Rolling Stones or Lou Reed or David Bowie, because they were just hyper famous. Like, it was impossible to take them to the streets, or it had to be a studio environment. And yeah, this kind of stuff, putting yourself in the mindset of the artist. I don't think if it's to really itemize the life of a celebrity or pop star, feel like this is what your life's going to be. Would they sign up for it? Would they say, actually, yeah, let me do this? Because I think we get in a better understanding of the mental health, and the artists coming out in this generation, counseling tours, because they want to look after themselves. Actually, I think this is a sign of that we're growing, that we're healing, because how many people we've lost just because they got lost in the industry.
I think, yeah, it's important to put your mental health first, and it's good to see artists doing that, and they want to take a break or whatever it is. It's kind of like, okay, I think fans definitely understand that for sure.
So let's talk about your artistic expression, because obviously you're very busy working with people, as you said, like Coldplay and Camila and others. Obviously, as I've labeled you as a selfless creative, you're working for the benefit of others, but on their vision. What is it that you do that creatively, I mean, if you even have space for it, that's the caveat. Like, what do you do when you're not on?
There's usually no space for that, but I'm actively trying to make, like, it is still doing photography, but of like other things. I did say I want to take pictures of like nature and flowers and the ocean and things like that. So I've started to do that. And I think that for me is where it's going. I enjoy that, appreciating things around you. I think, yeah, that's what I do to get away from it. It's still holding the cameras, but to me, that's like amazing. So I do that. And then other than that, it's just like the basic, like cooking, going on hikes, going on walks, going to the gym. I think that's, other ways to kind of keep going, really.
Taking up the LA lifestyle, yeah, of hiking.
Not like that. No, I say hiking. I haven't been on hiking for a while, but it does refreshes the mind. Just going for a walk or whatever it is, or just being outside, seeing the sun.
It makes definitely sense. It sounds like you're still at that phase where working a lot is your reality, but it does change because I'm doing lots of picking up from the situation I was in where you would get offered, let's say, a subscription to a magazine, a free subscription. I'm like, I don't have time to read magazines. Like, no. And it was such a wrong choice for me. Like, it was such a wrong choice just to not do that because we tell ourselves like how much we need to work. We've got existential, let's say like it's a survival instinct. There needs to be money in the bank. Rent needs to be paid, all of that stuff. And then you realize, actually, how could I have done that a lot faster and spend less of my emotion energy on people who don't necessarily actually wondered how good this could be? Because even though I'm sure in your position, like when you're working on these campaigns and rollouts, there's the expectation from the label, there's an expectation from the artist, there's your expectation, and everyone's going to wants to do this best as possible. But sometimes you need to tell me if you do that yourself, but sometimes we just go way beyond of what's needed because we really want it to be good. And we spend so much emotional energy. Yeah. Over delivering. Yeah.
That's me. That's me 13. Always do that. If there's one thing needed, I'll give 5 options because you're afraid to disappoint or, not get the approval you need and stuff like that. So I think it's a tough one because you don't want to disappoint, but also there will be some times where I'm like, this is what I'm going to give. And you have to be confident in your work. So I think there will be moments where I'm like, okay, I'm really happy with this. I can submit this as just the one. And going back to your point earlier about having the time to do magazine or whatever it is, I think even for me, when I get that time, I always want to learn things. So I'll be on YouTube learning, I don't know, just the latest editing trick or whatever it is. So to me, is that kind of working still? I don't think so because I'm learning. Some people really need to like not look at a computer screen to switch off, and that's totally fine. But for me, I'm like, I need to learn more. So if I have downtime, I do watch like films and stuff, but like most of the time I do prefer to be on like YouTube and like learning. It's weird, but that's just, how it is. And maybe in the future I'll learn to like completely do something that's not related or not anything to do with work to switch off. But for now, I think it's just, what can I do to learn? What's the next thing? Yeah, that's just our work. And yeah.
It's an exciting stage though, because in this sort of time and age, we have so many tools and so much information available to us. And obviously I was describing a situation that was just unhealthy for me because I was just more on the sort of commercial path. Of course, like the times that were not spent working, were spent with learning or trying to be, I was trying to prove myself I can do this, if that makes sense. Like I need to do more, 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 more. No one's knocking on the door today. Let's do more, more, more. And it was just like the time is almost enchanting because no one's telling you can't do it. But I think there would have been a few changes that I would love to have made back in the day, like to not break myself too much. But that path of learning, the path of growing, it's amazing because you receive artists like John Mayer, for example, saying like, oh, I still watch tutorials. Like John Mayer, he doesn't need to watch tutorials. He's amazing. And others, it's that path of constantly like, where do I go with this? Because there's no such thing as one and done, especially in the music industry. You got one good album. Okay. When is the next one coming? What do you mean? You just can't do one. No, no, no. You have to do this and do that. Because as we talked at the top of the conversation, like we've got more access to artists. They give us more. Like there's more produced. There's more ways to almost fall in love with the work and have emotional reaction. And because they do something to make us feel like, how do you connect with this stuff? So I think that part, I wouldn't, especially in your ripe age of 31. Yeah. So look, you're still in the right place to learn and to give you your all, because you can't be a sprint runner, you can't be a sprinter all your life, but you will slow down. But yeah, I love the fact that there is the energy, and then you can see what you do. You're learning stuff for your clients. You can ask what gives you the edge, especially in such a competitive world.
Yeah. I think ultimately, like I said before, if it's something like picking up a camera and doing that, that's my creative outlet. So that will help me keep going. I do want to learn what's next in that world. It's like social media or whatever the next digital trend is. I want to know what that next thing is. So in terms of personal growth, that for me is personal growth, and growth in terms of career, whatever it is that will help me get to the next stage. In terms of personal growth, definitely need to work on taking breaks, whatever it is. Yeah. And but I think when I was freelancing, you don't want to say no to any jobs that you get. It's such a hard thing to say no because once you're not available or whatever, there'll always be someone else and then that's it. So I think, yeah, it's a tough one because you have to like find the right balance. But yeah,
Have you ever said a no to a high profile artist that you regretted afterwards saying no?
the funny thing is probably not. I don't think so. Even if it's like two things in one day, I'm like, okay, I'll make it work as long as the time don't overlap. No, I don't think I have, to be honest with you.
I'm sure that if there was something really like career defining,
Oh yeah, exactly. I was like, we'll make it work.
will make you work. I think this is what you mentioned. You mentioned the freelance world because when you're a freelancer, I think the joke is almost like freelancer will always pick up the phone. Like you call a freelancer and they'll always answer because it's such an amazing prospect of working and creating your own business, but it's almost never guaranteed. And there was many conversations on this season and a previous season about like how freelancers are always worried that their job, current job, is their last job. And in a funny way, there will always be one of the jobs will be the last job, but it's about how you prepared for something else. Like how do you build that next step? Because I think in a freelance mindset, it's just now is now, now is 100%. And I totally understand the over delivering. It just like makes everyone happy, even if it doesn't pay exactly as it should be, because you really want to build meaningful connections. And I can tell you that being, correct, I'm trying to work out a math, let's say 14 years ahead on my career, everything, every job that I have over delivered, that I have worked with people and gave them extras and looked after them and been nice to them, even though they didn't always deserve it. You're banking that energy because it comes back to you in the later stage because you can afford to have more people to help you out. You can have more people, you have more opportunities that grow in a different dimensions. And yeah, I think that part is the freelance part. I think if there was maybe a bit more guarantee in that career, maybe we would have carried ourselves differently at that time. Whereas being almost turned up to 11 every day and juggling and struggling sometimes as a result, sometimes that is the baptism of fire that gives you a long-term career.
And I think the goal is to get to a point where if it's say photography or directing or whatever, that your work speaks for itself and you don't have to do that. And yeah, that's how most kind of creatives operate. But being in the business is a different aspect. You have to get things delivered, approved, whatever the deadlines and things like that. So I think for me, that's different. Whereas the goal is always your work speaks for itself. It's okay, I've built a style, so I have a signature style that people come to me for. And I think that's the goal. Working in the business itself is that kind of shift the goal a little bit, especially for me.
So your world is very, can I say pop driven? Where do you see yourself?
Pop driven, there's hip hop stuff that I've done. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself heading in the future? Is there any particular genre, artist, style of work that you've got defined almost as a step going forward or bringing those influences in your current work?
I think that's a great question. I haven't actually thought about what it is next that I want to do. I think I like the challenge of kind of being a creative and creating in the music industry, knowing the business side, working in the business side, and then creating. I think that's what I want to continue doing. And I think I want to do more of that. That makes sense. But on the creative side, I also want to find out what my style is, develop my style. And you say I have a kind of style, and I think I do, but I do want to hone in a little bit more. This is the signature. There's still lots more to learn on that front for me. And in an ideal world, I have this like incredible signature style, continuing to work in the business or whatever it is. But I think that's a tough one, especially when we talk about building a world for an artist, compromises and stuff like that. I have to see where that goes. But yeah.
Yeah, because you talk about sort of recognizable style and obviously having this almost different solutions for different artists because I can see that some of the imagery, like almost like the photo lab look, like in grainy images. Some of this is hyper realistic. And it's almost like when you cater into someone else's world building, you want to have your style, but almost be like the most amazing chameleon that helps them to actually achieve their vision. So that's interesting, I would suggest. start thinking what the next thing is, because it's almost like coming to these creative roadblocks sometimes, or finding yourself like looking back at 10-year career and going, oh shit, that's been 10 years. What does the next 10 years come, and how does it applicable? Because maybe some of these pop stars might not necessarily bother making music the next 5-10 years. I think we can put money on Coldplay being in the game for the next 50 years.
With Coldplay, I did like the art direction for their tour posters. And I love the Coldplay team. They're so nice. And just working with them, it's such a dream. Very communicative. The band is nice. And their shows are incredible. I don't know if you've been to a Coldplay show, but oh my God, incredible.
I'm happy to see how far you've gone, because, as I said, I've been following your progress through just your social media. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. So I knew that you were always working with some pop stars, but I was like, wow, this is really impressive. So to be building that and having a story, I think must be inspiring for other people, just to show them like how you can do it, despite sometimes having the necessarily background, because there's a lot of conversation about industry plans and there's conversations about nepotism. And you're like, actually, you can do it. You can do it. You can be born in Tanzania. You can grow up in Leicester. You can totally do it, because I think there's the element when you say like grass is always greener. Like, I would never expect you to say that, because not your grass is the greener grass for some. So what you create is, I think, an aspiring level of creativity and kind of business side, and showing that the versatility of being a modern creative is actually what pays dividends.
Yeah, totally. And I hope that your listeners find it useful or whatever, because I was looking at who was on your podcast and I said earlier, I was like, oh, damn, I don't know why he wants me on there, but sure, I'll speak. But yeah, I think that's just the imposter syndrome and whatever it is.
I can reassure you, I had to do some therapy work on this myself in the past, but I can reassure that you're the right person in the right room doing the right thing.
When you're in the room with these people, Simon, whoever it is, like, I'm just a kid from Tanzania, then you move to Leicester. What am I doing here? When you're in the room with those kind of people, you're like, oh shit. And then that's when the imposter syndrome heightens even more. And you're like, oh damn. But you're there for a reason. You just gotta embrace it.
Look, it's paid dividends. I congratulate you on your career so far. And I'm excited what the things you're going to do next, because I think you're in the right place, in the right time, doing the right thing, that's making a difference in artists' lives and the fans' lives. And yeah, keep on doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you for listening to this episode of Mindful Creative Podcast. I'd love to know your thoughts, questions, or even suggestions, so please get in touch via the show notes or social channels. This episode was produced and presented by me, Rahul Bhatt. Editing and audio production was masterfully done by Neil McKay from 7 Million Bikes Podcast, and the theme music was written and produced by Jack James. Thank you, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Hey, just a quick note to say thank you for joining me on this episode. If this is your first time or you're a regular listener, please take a minute and rate the show on your chosen platform. A short review helps every show to be more visible to new listeners and provide them with value. So thank you for helping out. Thank you.